Welcome, welcome, and hello, and good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, or good night, wherever you are. Today is our 36th and penultimate session on this wonderful text, which is the Mahayana Uttara Tantra, also known as the Ratnagotra Vibhanga. So let's start in the very, very best way, as you know, which is to remind ourselves of our bodhicitta and to turn our hearts, our mind, our everything towards the loving care of our fellow beings, and to really long to be able to do more to help them and to do more to help ourselves too. And of course, this is the path of Dharma. Although what we've been studying, Buddha mind, the end of the journey, is inconceivable, fortunately the path is not inconceivable. Now that's good news. Again and again we hear about the ultimate is inconceivable. So we have here these animals called, I don't know what the word is in English, because English uses all the foreign words, cicadas, which is Spanish, or cigale, which is French. They spend up to 7 years underground. And, sorry, it's a different insect I'm thinking of. This is a beetle called a Capricorn beetle. It spends up to 7 years inside wood. Right, inside trees. It's if you get them in your trees, it's very bad news. They do for your trees, then they do for your rafters in your house, and everything collapses. Capricorn beetles. They spend up to 7 years inside the wood, in the dark. All they know is munch, 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 and darkness, right? But then something takes them and they drill their way out to the surface, and then they evolve, they change, they get wings, and they're out there in space with eyes that see, and they reproduce. They have a quick affair and then they die. But anyway, it really strikes me how that's all they know. They're in that wood all that time, then all of a sudden everything changes. Just incredible. I don't know if it is incredible for them, but it's incredible to think about. So, the way we can tunnel out of our darkness, very clear. The Dharma teachings are not inconceivable. They are very clear. They are highly conceivable. And this is what we've been doing for a couple of years, conceiving of them, putting them into structures, seeing how to go, how to meditate. That's wonderful news. So it's wonderful. Dharma is such a joy. So knowing that this is, what will save us, what will really be the game changer for all our future in this life and in future lives, we do our prayers of bodhicitta. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the community of most noble minds. From this moment on until we reach the very heart of enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and all 6 transcendent virtues, may we reach total awakening and every enlightened quality to be able to truly help sentient beings so lost in samsara. May each and every one of those beings be well. May they live long, be healthy, be well provided for, have good friends, find respect. May they live in places of peace and plenty, and most of all, may they practice Dharma. May they each create the causes for these good circumstances to be their wealth in future lives. May they be free from suffering and from creating causes of future suffering. May they discover this natural, sacred well-being that's totally beyond suffering and attain the great equanimity that's free of closeness or distance from anyone. Deyata shame shamawati shameta shatra am kurim arajite korota keori tejowati olo yani bishuda nemale malapa naye kukure kaka grase grasana omuki paramuki amuki shamedawane sawa graha bandhanane negri itva sawa bara prawadina vimukta mara pasha savitva buddha mudra anudgatita sava mare putsarita parishuddhe biga shantu sava mara kama. Glorious Guru, source of all blessing, ever present above our head on lotus and moon seat, through your immense kindness, ever sustain us, that your blessings of body, speech, and mind flow from you, and we are one. Well, as usual, after our monthly break for where we leave the formal teachings and there's a Tonglen training, I need to establish the zoom in to these teachings. So all the teachings of the Buddha that we have fall into two sections. Those directly given by the Buddha, called the Sutra, and the commentaries and explanations related to the Buddha's teaching given by the great masters after the Buddha, which are called the Shastra, or the explanatory texts. Amongst the Shastra, we are studying this one which Tibetans mainly attribute to the great master Asanga. There's a lot of scholarly debate about the author and the origins, but our Tibetan lineage masters attribute it to Asanga in the 4th century, and he was inspired by Maitreya. And so, we have this text. Some believe through research that Maitreya inspired a certain number, scholars disagree, but sort of like 20 key verses, direct transmission from Maitreya, and that the rest of this text, 400 verses, is Asanga's commentary or development of those key ideas. But it doesn't matter. This is a Shastra, and it explains the third turning of the Wheel of Dharma by Lord Buddha Shakyamuni. Text itself technically is in 3 parts, but the first and third are just short verses. The first part is the title and the homage, and the second part is the main body of the text, and then at the end there's the conclusion and dedication. So we're in the main body of the text, which itself is in 2 parts, called Part 1, the goal to be achieved, and Part 2, the cause for that achievement. Part 1, the goal to be achieved, has 3 main chapters or Vajra points: Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And then Part 2, the cause for achieving it, has 4 points: Buddha nature, enlightenment, enlightened qualities, and enlightened activity. So we're in the last point, enlightened activity. Enlightened activity itself has two main things to retain. So now we're, how can we say, you've heard all the rest before, but now it's time to perk up your ears. What do you need to know, at least as a bare minimum, about enlightened activity, Buddha activity? You know, what the mind does when it's enlightened. We need to know that it is spontaneous and that it is forever. I forget the word in the text, but it means forever. So it's not like any other phenomenon in our world which has beginning, middle, and end. Everything else is cause and effect. It wasn't there, different conditions bring it into being, it lasts, and then finished. Buddha activity is not like that. In the use of words, we have to be careful with words like eternal, because they've got all sorts of resonances with other things. So it doesn't stop Buddha activity. But that second point about it being forever is inextricably linked with it being non-conceptual and inconceivable. And for that, we need to understand our thinking mind and how that belongs to the world of creations, things that start, endure, finish. So you can study that, but it's much better if you meditate, then it becomes clear. This is the activity from, what can we say, the space within which thought and the conceived world, the personally experienced world, takes place. This is not activity of the conceived karmic conceptual world. This is the activity which comes from the timeless, changeless nature. So that's what we're looking at. And we had a brief introduction to the spontaneity and to the ceaselessness. We had a further explanation of the spontaneity and the ceaselessness. And now we've got 9 examples. That's where we left the text. And we went through the first example. So I need to remind you of that because it was a fortnight ago, and just to develop it a little bit more. So the example is if all of the land here turned into the divine Vaidurya gem, which is a very beautiful sort of pale blue gem, not unlike sapphire, and people looked into it, then they would see the realm of the Lord of the Gods, Indra. They'd see the palaces, the wonderful gardens and paradise. They'd see just what a wonderful life the gods and the devas enjoy, peaceful, harmonious, and so on. Most of the time. We'll come to that in the second example. And seeing that, they'd understand that the reason there is this wonderful existence is because of karma. And that if in this life we make really good karma, by helping other people and by meditating, mainly those two things, meditating, developing a peaceful mind, and then when you're not on the cushion, being forever kind and helpful, then you'll be reborn in the Deva realm. And so they really want that. They see how wonderful it is, and they feel very privileged. So that's the example we saw. I want to try and bring it to life a little bit more, and to go to the realm of fairy tales, or sort of these days or you can't even say Hollywood movies, because some great special effects mainly come from the Far East. So Hollywood's the past. It's my youth. I think if you want to get the best CGI special effects these days, you go to Korea or somewhere like that. But anyway, this looking into the Vaidurya gem, it's like when in fairy tales, like in the Lord of the Rings, which I think many of you have seen, at one point in the elven realm, they look into, it's like a font. It's a little round pool of water. But then when you look into it, you see not water. You see the future, you see magnificent, wonderful things, other dimensions. There's that, how can you say, magical feeling, inspirational feeling. What that verse is talking about is inspiration in terms of a material world. Inspiration in terms of a material world, which we all know. Most of our human lives have a large element of fulfilling our dreams. I had a very good school friend who was a dentist, and he dreamt that when he retired, he was going to get himself a really nice BMW convertible and go touring around. I mean, that was, how can you say, his inspirational dream, through hours and hours and days of bending over people's mouths and dealing with their bad breath and putting in fillings and all of that. His children would be grown up and gone away, and he and his wife would be in this convertible BMW, enjoying. Unfortunately, just as he retired, he got quite a strong cancer, and it never happened. But it's just an example. I mean, it's the example of an inspirational dream based in the material world. You want to make your garden like whatever your inspiration is. You want your house to be like, or you want to, in the material world, you want to go and see the aurora borealis at least once in your life, or to go and stroke a gorilla in the African jungle or something. Material world, something that's really going to make you happy. So we've all got this. We spend a lot of our lives and a lot of money and a lot of energy and a lot of time based on inspiration, making a material reality. So it all starts with the idea, like my friend, the idea of this beautiful top of the range BMW. It wasn't a real one, it was an idea, right? But that idea is enough to keep you going through endless mouths and dental work. So this is what this first example is about. And I mentioned the material aspect because of the 9 examples. This first example is related to the physical aspect of enlightenment, Buddha's manifestation, the kayas, and then the 12 deeds of the Buddha, and so on. So it says, it's an example, just like. So unfortunately, it's not happening in our world, so we can't just go and enjoy the example. It's from legend. But it was obviously a legend that spoke very, very much to the Indian people at the time of Asanga. So there, if this will happen, then all of a sudden there's this vision of how it could be. And there's this knowledge, not only of how it could be, but how you can get there through good karma. That's the example for rebirth in the Deva realm. The example that it's of is our own Dharma practice. We realize we could be like Buddha. We see the reflection of that reality in the wise, calm mind of meditation, when our mind is inspired, which usually happens because of meditation or during meditation. Not necessarily during meditation, but because of meditation, then that becomes a reflective material in which we are inspired. We understand something of what enlightenment is about, becoming Buddha, manifesting to bodhisattvas, manifesting in the six realms. And then we know the way. The way is the practice of Dharma. So that's the first example. It's an example. All 9 examples are limited. Because first one, because rebirth in the Deva realm is self-interest, is based on ego. You see what it's like and you want it. I like to be like that. It's a being state. And it's a possibility within samsara that we Buddhists don't want, because it's a waste of time. It's a lovely waste of time. But it's a long waste of time. And you end up at best back where you started, or maybe even worse. So we are not after something material for ourselves. Dharma teachings, especially this text, show us that we're going into a selfless state that benefits everybody, and that's forever. So anyway, that was the first example, and then now we need to move on and go to the second example. The first example was about, we talk about body, speech, and mind, the physical aspect, the physical manifestation of the Buddha. The second example is about the Buddha's speech. Again, it's an example. And again, unfortunately, it's not an example that's happening in our world. It's taken from the Deva realms. But never mind, we can understand it. It's not that difficult. So let's read the text. We're on page 283 and verse 310, 311. Through the power of the God's former goodness, the Dharma drum in the divine realms, without effort, location, mental form, or concept, exalts all the uncaring gods over and over again with its throbs of impermanence, boom, suffering, boom, no self, boom, and peace, boom. So that's the example. And this is an example from the Deva realms. God rebirth, and from what are called the form Deva realms mainly. And so how are you reborn there? Well, as I just said, there's a lot of goodness we do. In previous lives, if somebody's done lots of good, kind, helpful karma to others, and they've practiced non-violence, non-aggression, and then they've meditated on shamatha. These are the main combinations. And depending if there's more shamatha, less shamatha, if there is more goodness, less goodness, then you get reborn in different Deva realms. They are very pleasant. And the fact that all is going well, not just well, it's going beautifully, makes the devas spiritually lazy. Now, of course, we have a counterpart in the human realm when even if we're a Dharma person and we've taken refuge and we've got practice, and transmission and connection, when things are going well, the Dharma tends to go to the background. It's part of our life, it's an important part, we value it, but life, we're busy. We're busy. It's one of the main characteristics of humans. We're busy. And we're busy enjoying it. And it's often only when something goes wrong that all of a sudden we get what people call, well, it's interesting what they call it, a wake-up call. What does a wake-up call mean? It means you've been asleep. You've been lulled into all the worldly things, worldly pleasures, sensorial pleasures, mainly we're talking about here. Pleasant things to see, landscapes or whatever. Go to an art exhibition, pleasant things to hear. Must get the new album of blah, 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 or whatever. Pleasant clothes to wear, nice, warm clothes for the winter or whatever, or sensorial. Takes a lot of time, and then when it's nice, we get lost in it. So anyway, the Deva realms are very nice. So when it says the careless gods in that verse, careless doesn't mean they're clumsy. It means they don't care so much for others' suffering because they are too absorbed in their own pleasure. I think this is the definition. They don't care enough for others' suffering because they're too absorbed in their own pleasure. All right, so they're called the careless gods. But even though they get all of that through their good worldly karma, through the power of past dharma, they also get something they didn't ask for, which is the divine drumbeat. Now this is a curious thing. You can't get away from it in the Deva realms. It's somewhere there. Boom, boom, all the time. And it's the background voice that's telling them, yes, but it's impermanent. It's so nice. Yes, but it's impermanent. Boom. It's so nice, but it's suffering. Because when this ends, it's going to hurt so much. It's been so good, and when you lose so good, it so hurts. If you've got nothing to lose, it doesn't hurt. The more you've got to lose, the more when it goes. So the end of the Deva rebirth is incredibly agonizing because they see where they're going next, and there's no way kind of out of it. Boom, no self. This feeling of, I'm doing pretty well, not bad being a Deva. Maybe they've got, depending which Deva realm, they've got what they call divine vision. They see other realms. And they're in a nice place. So, and so on. So they've got this drum, but the thing about the drum sound and the drum beat, which is all the time giving a Dharma message in the background, which they are busy trying to ignore. It sounds so familiar to me. I don't know about to you, but there is this sort of constant background, Ken, you know this, and then, must do this, must do that, and this is nice, and I'm going to put on a bit of music and listen to whatever. So they get this, but this is the thing, there's no drum. There's no drummer. There's no drummer who's setting a rhythm, who wants them to know, boom, impermanence, boom, suffering. There's the sound, but no drum, no drummer, no intention. This is the example. So it's not happening here. It's not a good example from that point of view. If you could go out and open your front door and there'd be boom, impermanence, boom, suffering, it will make a lot of sense. So it's from the legend. That's the example. And now, what's the example for? It's for Buddha speech. So verse 312, like this, the all-pervading is also without effort and the like, effortless drumming. Yet Buddha's speech reaches all beings without exception, teaching the noble doctrine to the fortunate. Verse 313, just as the divine drum beats for devas only, through their karma, so also does the sage's Dharma speech arise in the world due to people's karma. Just as the sound, without effort, without source, without form or without an intention, without a mind, brings peace to the devas, so also is peace procured by Dharma, without effort or the other things. Verse 314, the sound of the drum in the celestial citadel is the cause which both ends divine play and also bestows fearlessness to vanquish Asura army when through defilement war occurs. Like this, that arising from such as formless meditation proclaims in the worlds the way of the insurpassable path of peace to defeat totally sentient beings' defilements and suffering. So that's the next section about this divine drum. There's a lot to reflect on in these verses. Go away, take a section, think about it for some time, savor the example. But here the drum, it does bring some sense to the devas, brings them to peace, it says, because they realize that they're on a temporary, wonderful journey through the deva realms, and it brings their mind to Dharma. The second thing it does, it says it gives them courage, because depending which deva realm and their own karma, then in the legends of the deva realm, or the story, then there are the devas, the gods, and there are the demigods, the jealous asuras. They've got better karma than us humans, so they have themselves a very good life, much better than human realm. Problem is, they see the deva realms, which are much better than theirs. It's kind of middle class mentality. They see it could be better. So rather than being happy with it's good enough, they want what the devas have got, but they don't have the karma. So what do? They want to go and rip it off. They want to go and invade them. They want to take over the deva realm, and so they fight them. But they don't have the karma to be everything the devas are. So the devas, it must be so boring if you're a deva. Here they come again, another army of jealous gods. Okay, here we go. And so they've got better karma. They defeat them. So it says one thing the Dharma drum does is it gives them courage. But don't ask me to explain this more. That's all I know about it. It's the example. But now if we apply the example to Dharma, not only is there this inspirational inner voice inside us, let's call it that, this inspirational intuition which keeps us on the right track, which brings us back to sanity. But sometimes our whole Dharma path becomes fragile because it's under attack from from lots of things, but we call them maras, the four maras. So then when we risk losing the stability of our mind, the strength of our Dharma, through the power of our worldly mind coming to retrieve us, then we get the courage to deal with our anger, deal with our passion and lust, and deal with our jealousy and ignorance and laziness and all those things. Then carry on with the verses. Universal, joyously beneficial, and having threefold miracles, the sage's melody is superior to the celestial symbols. The mighty sound of the divine drum cannot reach earthlings' ears, yet the sound of Buddha speech is heard in samsara's underworld. So this verse is telling us how Buddha's speech, Dhamma, Dhamma teachings go through all the realms. Buddha's mind manifests throughout the entire universe of beings. This thing of the divine drum is limited to the Deva realms. So it's saying Buddha's speech is better. And then it talks about the celestial symbols. And this is about excitement. Excitement. So one thing that the material devas like doing is getting excited. So music likes to get excited. Whether it's Western classical music, raga, building up to a crescendo. And we can make all sorts of reasons why and what it represents, but it gets your juices going, gets you excited, and you get more and more excited, and then, you've got all the instruments and all the timpani going boom, 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 boom like this, and the whole orchestra is blowing the roof off the building. People like that. Or it's like a raga on a sitar. Starts off, then it gets faster and faster and faster and faster and builds up to a climax and then sort of comes down. So in the Deva realm, they've got these amazing symbols that clash and get people excited. They dance. So this is a reflection of the nature of excitement. You can't maintain excitement. It's something that comes, sort of gradually builds up to it, and then it finishes. You come down for it. It's got a very kind of, how can you say, sexual graphic pattern. It builds up, it comes to a climax, and then it's all over and finish. So this is like the symbols that go and faster and faster and louder and louder. And whereas the divine drumbeat in the Deva realm is just there all the time. Boom, 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 boom. Doesn't go up, doesn't go down. So this is again an example from, not from our daily experience, but from the legends of the Deva realms. So it says all the excitement of the symbols cannot compare, and it's in the end drowned out, because everything always comes back to that drum beat. Whatever our life takes us into, all our adventures, it will always come back to this timeless truth of Dharma. Four Noble Truths, the two truths, absolute and relative. Page 285. In the heavens, tens of millions of celestial symbols resound to reinforce desire's fire. Yet those whose identity is compassion, Buddhas, give forth a single melody to extinguish totally suffering's fire. Verse 318, the beautiful and pleasant music of symbols in the heavens brings increased mental agitation. The speech of the Tathagatas, whose nature is compassion, turns the mind towards samadhi and stimulates deep reflection. In brief, it's said that the cause of happiness for those in each and every universe, in heaven or on earth, depends entirely upon that very melody, all pervasively manifest in every world. So that's the next sort of set of things to reflect upon. Some of it I've just explained. The symbols are related to excitement and desire, whereas Dharma teachings turn the mind towards inwards, towards samadhi and deep reflection about the very nature of things. But that verse 319, you can reflect on that for a long time. It's very, very profound. It says that Dharma is the cause for every happiness anywhere in any world. Now, if you think about it, Dharma isn't everywhere in every world. When we study precious human existence, we realize that a world where the Buddha's taught and where we have access to the pure teachings is very rare. So what it means is looking at the very core essence of what is Dharma. It's the truth about the very nature of everything and everyone. And implicit to that truth is morality. It might not seem like it all the time, but we live in a basically moral universe. If you are immoral, you're bringing trouble to yourself. If you are good and moral and kind and virtuous, you're not just doing something good for everybody else, but good for yourself. Whether there's Buddhism, whether there's Christianity, whether there's whatever faith or no faith there is in any world, this basic fiber that because every one of us has Buddha nature, every one of us can feel deep down, is what's behind all of the good karma that's made anywhere. So when we come to look at the word dharma in Sanskrit, we see in part of the analysis that there are two aspects of dharma: natural dharma and Buddha dharma. Natural dharma is this natural feeling of morality, which is reflected in the laws of most countries. It's wrong to kill, it's wrong to steal. It's not a good thing. And so that natural dharma, and people who are sensitive, you feel it when you do something good and kind. It's beautiful. You're in the right place, you're in a harmonious place. And when you do something which is selfish and greedy or exploiting others, it's got a dirty feel to it. So that's natural Dharma. It's in everybody because everyone's got Buddha nature. And then Buddha Dharma is what the Buddha taught, formulated as all sorts of teachings in the worlds where that's fortunate enough to have happened. That verse is very verse I lost my place. Verse 319 is one worth thinking about a lot. Then the final verse for this second example of Buddha speech, 320, just as those with no hearing cannot experience subtle sound, and even those with divine hearing cannot hear every sound, so likewise is the subtle Dharma, this domain of very finest wisdom, to be heard only by those few whose mind is undefiled. So the point of this verse, sound can be there, but if you're deaf, you can't hear it. The sound's there, but if you're deaf, you can't hear it. And if you're not completely deaf, but for instance, going deaf, like lots of people do these days, and now we're in an age here, they didn't have hearing aids, right? You can't just go and get something you put in your ear or an ear trumpet or anything like that. If you're deaf, you're deaf, right? So if you're going deaf, then there are more and more subtle sounds. That's what it's talking about. You can't hear anymore. You can't pick up. And we know, with deafness, you lose certain frequencies. Or you can't hear what people are saying if other people are talking at the same time. So it says, the sound's there, but depending on the quality of your hearing, you can either hear it or not. And even if you're a deva, and you've got what they call the divine ear, which can hear things very far away or very subtle sounds, it can't hear everything. It's got limits. So it says, just like that, the sound is there, but humans or devas can't experience it because of their own limitations. So the Buddha wisdom, which is behind all the Dharma teachings, is to make us wiser and better. That sound of truth, that message of truth, that inner voice of truth is only heard when the mind is undefiled. So when we make our mind pure, we make it pure by meditation. In meditation, we learn not to buy into emotion, not to buy into thought. We learn to be undistracted and to settle the mind in peace. And that's where we can start to hear this inner, very pure message that's always been there. So anyway, second example, the divine drum, was about Buddha's speech, which, in other words, Dharma. Third example is about Buddha's mind. Buddha mind, and it's the example of clouds, and in particular, Indian monsoon clouds. Verse 321, in the rainy season, clouds continuously and effortlessly pour down vast amounts of water onto the earth, and are the cause for good and bountiful crops. Likewise, clouds of compassion, without any conceptualizing, rain down the waters of the victor's noble teachings and cause a harvest of virtue for sentient beings. So the example here is monsoon, and you know about the monsoon. It gets hotter and hotter and drier before it happens. And then when it breaks, then that's good news for the farmers, because the rain's coming down and all the seeds they've prepared. Like just now, as some of you know, I'm a tiny bit involved in farming in Zimbabwe. It really chuffs me to be 1% a Zimbabwean farmer. So just now is just when the rains should break. And so the fields have been prepared, the seeds have been sown, and it just needs that rain to come, and then it will come up, like anything. And in the past, one place I went to was Congo, to a Dharma group there. And there's a small monastery, Buddhist monastery in Congo, and they planted 3 weeks ago, and they got the rains already, and they've got edible plants. They were harvesting a couple of days ago. So same thing, when the rains come, it's brilliant. All the seeds come up, and it's you can eat. You're not going to starve. It's really good news. In those countries, I've been also in Zimbabwe in drought years, and the number of dead, the starvation and poverty, this is horrible. We were distributing food as much as one could. Some people would walk with great difficulty for 3 days just because they heard there's food available somewhere. So this is the idea that monsoon rain is like such a wonderful thing when it comes. But the point is, the clouds that give it aren't thinking, oh, there's Ken down there, and Ken needs his crops, and there's beans there, and they need a lot of water, and there's this there. The rain just comes and rains. And then that's its very nature. It is not thinking specifically to benefit this person. By its very nature, it pours out these millions of tons of water on the earth. Page 287, verse 323. Provided that the world is engaged in virtuous ways, the wind-borne clouds will cause a fall of rain. Likewise, the wind of compassion causes Buddha clouds to cascade their rain of true teachings to increase virtue in beings. Now this verse, again, lends itself to a lot of thinking. I won't go through it today, but I have been, when we've been studying this book, about the nature of Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, how Dharmakaya is the timeless, changeless state, but the other two kayas are created by the compassion and the virtue and the contacts we make on the path. So they vary from Buddha to Buddha. So here in ancient Indian thinking, the harmony of the seasons was thought to depend on the karma of the people. So if you had good rains, good crops, and the weather's in harmony, it's because the people have been acting well. That's what they believed. Verse 324, in the world, through great compassionate love and knowledge, the clouds of the Lord of all the sages abide amid space, unblemished by either that which changes or the changeless. As their unspoilt essence, they have samadhi and dharani waters, which are the very cause of the harvest of virtue there. It's a very deep verse, this one. So you've got space and clouds, you've got the changeless nature, the space of Buddha mind, you have the clouds of all the virtue accumulated on the bodhisattva path, and Dharma clouds are pure. They are not contaminated by anything. And they have samadhi and dharani waters. There's no time to explain this. But when you're on the bodhisattva path, going through the 10 levels, part of what you cultivate are 80 bodhisattva qualities, 2 of which are samadhi and dharani, which go together, and which enable you more and more to help spontaneously. You don't need to think about, somehow you're just there and you have exactly the right help for somebody at the right time, in the right way, and you're kind of like more and more invisible, transparent agent of that help. You're not Ken the Bodhisattva, a Boy Scout Bodhisattva going out there, helping this one, thinking how to do it, making a plan, gathering the resources. Of course, at first it has to be like that. How can we, ordinary people, help each other if we don't think, we don't try and raise money, we don't plan it very well? But more and more through the bodhisattva levels, we get into a state of mind where you are just spontaneously right there, in the right place, at the right time, with the right words or the right help for somebody. And there's less and less you in it, and more this, what we're looking at, the power of the enlightened mind, which is everywhere to help people through you, through your disappearing you, the bodhisattva. Over the page, cool, delicious, soft, light water fallen from the clouds. Beautiful rain. Acquires many different tastes by contact with salty and other grounds. Likewise the rain of the eightfold water of the sublime, falling from the heart of that vastest cloud of compassionate love, assumes many a flavour according to beings' various mentalities. So when it says cool, delicious, soft, light, and so on, that's some of the 8 qualities of water in the Pure Lands and to a certain extent in the Deva realm. But this same water, when it falls on different soils, becomes acid, alkaline, salty, sweet, bitter. So when you have a room full of people receiving a Dharma teachings, if you've got 8 people in the teaching, you've got 8 different versions of the same teaching. It will be interpreted in their mind according to their own experience, according to their own projections, very much what they want to hear or what they don't want to hear, and that they're shutting out. So the Dharma teaching is very pure, it's very clear, it's very obvious. But once it comes from pure mind into our relative mind, it takes on our own flavour. So that's why there's Ken's Dharma path and everybody else's Dharma path. It's pointing us to the purity of the message, but what it's like when it lands, and we're looking at Buddha mind in this example. So Buddha mind's intention, Buddha mind is pure, simple, natural. But our journey to get to that simplicity is complicated. And who complicates it? We do, yes. And that's the only way it can work, because we start off very, very complicated beings. Verses 326, 327, 328, 328, yeah. Those of appreciative faith, the middling, and those with animosity form 3 groups comparable to humans, peafowl, and pretas. In the cloudless end of spring, men and these non-flyers, that's peacocks, peafowl, suffer. In the summertime, when it rains, the pretas suffer. This example is drawn drawn upon to illustrate how, depending upon whether there's rain of Dharma or not, worldly beings will either aspire to it or feel animosity. Making a deluge of mighty raindrops, hurling down hailstones or thunderbolts, clouds do not consider the small fauna or those who run to the hills. Similarly, clouds of perfect knowledge and compassionate love, with their very fine or larger drops, do not mind that some will purify their defilements, while others tend to believe in self. Back in India, we're back in the monsoon. The monsoon rains come. It's pouring down. What happens? Well, the peacocks, they go up on the trees or on the tops of buildings, and they're really happy. Wow! No! 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 They are really over the top. They've been waiting for this, right? And the humans who planted their seeds, they're really happy. The harvest is going to come. But the pretas, for them, because of their karma, rain is like acid burning their skin. And so for them, it's a horror. They don't like it. And not only that, there are some animals that are very scared, especially little animals and so on that live in holes, live in burrows. Very often they go running for shelter. The rain's very scary. So it says when Buddha teaches, or in these days when a Lama teaches, then it will produce varied reactions in people. Some people will be, "Oh, oh, oh," and they'll be on top of their trees, blissed out their brains because they're getting Dharma teachings, and other people will be happy like the humans, thinking of all the good that will come of it. But other people get a prickly, adverse reaction, and they don't like it one bit, and they just don't want to hear it. They want to run away from it. Simple explanation. Real explanation: we are not singular beings. Inside this precious human life, we are many people. So one bit of us loves the Dharma, and another bit of us, the ego bit, it's not good news. I don't want to hear it, right? And so because that makes sense, yes, I can see by your expressions, it makes a lot of sense. So part of us is the peacock, part of us is the human, part of us is the preta that's stung by what our ego is still striving to get, still striving to survive. And part of us wants to run. This becomes very vivid in the bardo after we die, when this whole thing is much more raw, much more immediate, and no escaping it. And part of us could dissolve into the light. Part of us is looking for security, a comfortable. I don't know if they took it from the English or they invented it in France, but some years ago there was a craze called cocooning. Cocooning means you get yourself like a full body, furry, cuddly suit that you get right inside, and you sit in your armchair and you put on nice music so you feel like completely cocooned in pleasant sensations. And so part of us sometimes wants to run into the cocoon. Part of us welcomes the Dharma. So this is really what it's talking about, and giving the example, the different reactions, but making the point that the Buddha mind, giving the teachings, very pure, very simple. It's about how they're received, like the different soils. Verse 329, in this samsara of beginningless birth and death, there are 5 sorts of sentient being. Just as there's no pleasant smell in excrement, there is no true contentment among those 5. Their sufferings are like the incessant pain of burns, wounds, chemical scalds, and so forth. The clouds of compassion cause a mighty rain of true Dharma, which will soothe all of these. The 5 sorts of beings, it's the 6 realms. We put the devas and the demigods together. So devas and asuras, 1, humans, 2, animals, 3, spirits, 4, hell realms, 5. So that's the wheel of samsara. And it says there's no real worthwhile lasting happiness to be found in any of them. And it gives the example of excrement, saying whatever sort of excrement it is, whatever you've been eating, it all smells like shit. So to a wise, awakened mind, whatever samsaric beings are getting up to, well, it all smells like shit. It's all got, it's sad. It's a pathetic struggle for happiness that never really works. So it says, these are like if you've been burnt or wounded or chemical scald. So how, if you could run out into the monsoon rain, that cool rain would be healing your burn, would be healing your scald. Verse 330, those with wisdom, those endowed with prajna, have no longing for even the highest celestial or human sovereignty, having understood that divine death and transmigration or humanity's constant searching are all misery. They have also seen through wisdom and through following with faith the Tathagata's excellent teaching. This is suffering, this is the cause of suffering, this is sensation, and cessation, not sensation, cessation, and cessation comes through its cause, understanding. Verse 331, very famous Buddhist analogy. Just as a disease needs to be diagnosed and its cause eliminated so that a healthy state can be achieved and the remedy implemented, so one should know suffering, its causes, cessation, and the path. So the 4 truths, 4 noble truths. Truth of suffering is like recognizing, diagnosing a disease, and then treating its causes, karma, cause and effect. One needs to know what the healthy state is, cessation, and one needs to put its remedy, the cause of cessation, the remedies, into action. So let's leave that there. Plenty to think about in those first 3 examples for Buddha's body, speech, mind. Now we come to different ones. Number 4, the example of Brahma, which is for the way Buddha emanates. Now this is all they had back in those days, is the legends of Brahma. So these days we've got a fantastic example, TV. Someone in a TV studio, right? And even though they're in the studio, they appear in thousands of TVs all over the land. Color TVs, black and white TVs, TVs with poor reception, TVs with excellent reception, without moving. They're in your parlor, but they're not in your parlor. They're in the TV studio. But somehow they're manifest in your world, like me just now. I'm here. I'm in this room, in this house, in this part of France. But I'm also there with you, right? And then depending on your internet and your screen, I'm maybe on a tiny phone, maybe I'm on a super big screen, and so on. So they didn't have that in the past. They have Brahma. So Verse 332, without effort and without departing from his Brahma heaven, Brahma can manifest his presence in any of the Deva realms. Likewise, while never departing from Dharmakaya, the great victor effortlessly manifests emanations in any sphere to the mature. Mature mainly means bodhisattvas. Verse 334, without leaving his palace, Brahma manifests in the sense realm. Means the 6 realms of samsara. Seeing him there makes its gods abandon pursuit of the sensorial. Similarly, the Sugatas, while never leaving Dharmakaya, are perceived in every world sphere by those who are ready. The vision constantly causes them to relinquish impurity. So there are many levels of Deva realms. Some of them are like very material. They got beautiful wives, nice palace, delicious food. It's kind of like here, but better, right? It's very material, but the main point, it's sensorial. Nice things to see, hear, smell, taste, eat, and nice physical sensations, including sexual sensations in beautiful partner, beautiful exchange, and so on. So some of the lower Deva realms are like that. And then as it goes up, they're more and more caused by meditation in past lives, and they're much more a refined mental state, very, very fine and subtle. Brahma, the very word Brahma in Sanskrit means pure, purity. So the god Brahma means the purest God. The Brahma heaven means a dimension of experience which is the purest Deva realm. So Brahma's presence without Brahma ever leaving that purity manifests in the sensorial God's realms, and they realize that their pleasures are quite limited pleasures, and that Brahma's state, purity, is really where it's at, what they would really like to become. That's the example, but the main point is Brahma is not trying to emanate here and emanate there. He's just Brahma. And because he's Brahma, then all of that happens spontaneously. And it inspires the gods to become purer. So likewise, Buddha, mind, without ever leaving the timeless, changeless Dharmakaya, somehow manifests through our senses. So we see Buddhas, we hear Dharma teachings, we feel in our body the meaning of blessing. If ever you've got a hand blessing from a really enlightened being, it's a very, very special physical experience. So verse 335 and 336 shows us the causes for Brahma and the God's experience, and the causes for us experiencing Buddhas. Due to the power of his former prayers, Brahma, and of the God's own virtue, Brahma appears effortlessly. Forms of the spontaneous Buddha mind appear similarly in our mind. Verse 336, how do they appear? Descent from Tushita, entering the womb, going to his father's palace, enjoyment of worldly life, solitary practice, overcoming Mara, attaining enlightenment, teaching the path to the city of peace. Having demonstrated these, the great sage becomes invisible in this world. So it's the 12 deeds of the Buddha that we saw in the last chapter. How are you doing? Okay. I'm steaming on because I want to finish. I want to finish the book But it's a lot, and it could be endless describing, going deeper into these verses. Fifth example is the sun, and this is an example of the way Buddha wisdom penetrates into our lives. When the sun shines, lotuses and similar flowers open. At the same time, the kumata flower closes up completely. The sun has no opinion of good or bad, that these, the water-borne flowers, be either open or closed. Also like this is the Son of Beings, the perfectly realized ones. So this is in India, you have lotuses and other flowers, some that only open up when the sun opens up. I've got some here in my garden just now, winter daisies. And at night time they're all closed up. And when the sun comes up in the morning, they start opening up. Then you get this beautiful daisy. And then as the afternoon goes on. So the sun does that, but they had another type of flower in India which only opens up at night time and closes up when the sun comes and when daylight comes, called a kumata flower. So it says the sun isn't thinking, oh, what an appreciative, nice flower. It opens up to me when I come out. Lovely daisy or lovely water lily or whatever. And bad flower. It was lovely and open when I wasn't there, and when I come it closes up. It's just the sun. It shines, but those flowers react differently. When they do open to the sun, then they receive the fullness of its warmth and light, which is very nourishing for them. So when we can open up to our Buddha mind, then we receive the full nourishment and the light. It illuminates our life. It's brilliant. It warms our heart. Very lovely example, this one. Light and warmth. But the purity of our mind, the inner Buddha nature, it's the same for everyone. It's just on the surface we can either react positively and let it in, or we can close up and shut it out. So verses 338, 339, the sun without ideas and by its own light's radiation simultaneously makes lotuses bloom and other things ripen. Similarly, without ideation, the Tathagata sun pours forth rays of true Dharma onto those lotus beings to be trained. Verse 340, through the Dharma and the form kaya, the sun of omniscience rises in the firmament of the essence of enlightenment, to send forth its sunbeams of wisdom into sentient beings. So it rises in the firmament of the essence of enlightenment. That means in our hearts, the essence of enlightenment. Our Buddha nature is there. And through the path, it's like the sun rises. At first there's a tiny bit of light, and then more and more, and then we get to see the actual sun itself. Verse 341, famous example. Due to this, the Sugata sun appears at one and the same time in countless reflections in all the water vessels which are sentient beings to be guided. So one sun in the sky, and then lots of pots, dishes, cups of water, not to mention puddles. And as soon as there is the water, the sun can be reflected. No water, no reflection. So how this one sun, this Buddha mind inside each of us, is reflected in our stream of consciousness depends on our stream of consciousness. It's like here, from my house, I see the sea. You can see the sun on the sea, especially in the winter like now when the sun's low. That's a big reflection, and it's got lots of resonance. And if you had a thimbleful of water, you get a reflection as well. It wouldn't be quite the same as this wonderful reflection on the sea. And if it's a thimbleful, it will go away very quickly, depending on where the sun is. If it's the sea, you'll get some kind of reflection for a lot of the day. Verse 342, 343. Continually from among the sky of all-pervading Dhammadhatu, in a manner determined by the power of their own merit, shines forth the Buddha sun on the mountain-like disciples. Another example, a mountain. Now we've gone from the bowls of water to a mountain. A mountain, right? You get the most sun when you're on the top of the mountain. You get sun from sunrise to sunset. Whereas down in the valley, they have to wait a long time for the sun to come up over the hills, and then it goes behind the hills quite early, and they're in the shade. The more you go up the mountain, the more sun you get. There's a particular resonance of this when we study the stages of the path to what happens in what's called the stage of junction, where we develop shunyata, knowledge through study and experience through meditation. And then we get up to a point which is called the peak or the summit. It means our defilements, like a child's drawing of a mountain, the defilements get less and less as we go up. Less and less mountain, more and more space, until there's only the tip of the defilements and karma that keep us in samsara. And there we have a very panoramic view of space, very panoramic understanding of shunyata. Verse 343, just as the risen sun with thousands of magnificent rays illuminates the universe, shedding its light in turn on first the highest summits, then the lower summits, then the plains, then the valleys. Likewise does that sun, the victorious light, shed its light progressively on the multitude of being. Turn the page, verse 344. Sun's a good example. It's a nice example. The sun's just the sun. We know so much about it now. It's just up there being just kind of nuclear energy thing. It just is. But because of that, we get warmth, we get light, day and night as the earth turns. We know now that if we were a bit further into space, there wouldn't be humans. Human life couldn't survive. If we were a bit closer to the sun, we'd be fried up. There wouldn't be human life. We're kind of in just the right place. But the sun didn't put us there. You see. The sun's just the sun. But for us and the crops, and then we see, like it says here, when the sun comes up, thousands of brilliant rays. Sometimes with the clouds, we see all these sunbeams coming through. But the sun is just the sun. It's the local circumstances which make the experience of it different. So it's an example. It's a good example, but it's not good enough. Verse 344, the sun cannot radiate to the depths of space in every realm, nor show the meaning of what is to be known to those obscured by the darkness of ignorance. The one who is identical with compassion, Buddha, shows beings the significance of that which should be known. clarity, a clear mind. Through spectra of radiant, multiple color, all the colors of Dharma truths in our mind. Verse 345, when the Buddha goes to cities, the eyeless see. They experience through that seeing the meaningful, free from the various aspects of what is not beneficial. Their intelligence illuminated by the light of the Buddha sun. Those blinded by ignorance, fallen into the ocean of existence and veiled by the darkness of preconceived ideas, see the essence they hadn't previously seen. So the sun's a great example, but it stops there. What Buddha does is bring purpose, bring wisdom, bring love and compassion, bring so many wonderful things that the sun could never do. So when he says, when Buddha goes to cities, the blind see. You can take that literally, but it means when they come to this busy place, which is the city of our mind. Then whereas we've been before blindly wandering in samsara, then we see all these things that are mentioned, especially the essence of our own being. So let's do one more example today. The wish-fulfilling gem, and this is about the mystery of mind, of Buddha's mind. Again, it's an example that, well, what? You can't say it doesn't exist in this world, because the legend of the wish-fulfilling gem is about wish-fulfilling gems in our world, just there aren't many of them. So it's like the idea of, we have wishing wells and places where you can go and make a wish. People believe it. And so these are precious rocks or crystals, and they are special. And in the legend, if you get close enough to one and make a wish, it comes true. So you might not have actually come across one of these in your own life, but the idea is not alien to us, because we have, places, special circumstances where we think if you make a wish, there's more likelihood it will come true. It's worldly superstition, or perhaps worldly reality. Who knows? So in here, in these Mahayana teachings about Buddha mind, then we're going to see that this example of a wishing gem is that when you get close enough to it, your wishes are fulfilled. The main point, same point all the way through these examples, the gem isn't thinking, here comes Ken, what's he after? And then how are we going to make that happen? Gosh, he wants another guitar. So how are we going to get him to that and avoid him being disappointed and wanting yet another one after that? It doesn't need to think, it just is. It's like the sun, it's like the monsoon clouds, it's like all the examples, it just is what it is. But because it is what it is, when we interact with it, something special happens. So that's the example of the wish-fulfilling gem. The verses say, a wish-fulfilling gem, though not thinking, fulfills simultaneously all the wishes of those within the sphere of its activity. So if you have like 5 people who come to the wish-fulfilling gem at the same time, it doesn't need to say, get into a queue, I'll do you first, and then you second, and then you third. It just is. And they all come at the same time. They all get their wishes fulfilled. Likewise, Buddha does not think. though those of varying aspirations hear various teachings when turning to the wish-fulfilling Buddha. Verse 348, such a precious gem bestows the desired wealth on others perfectly, effortlessly, without any concept. Similarly, effortlessly, and however appropriate, the great sage remains constantly in the world to help others for as long as it persists. Verse 349, just as it's difficult for beings here, desirous of such a gem, to find one, because they're hidden underground or in the depths of the ocean, so one should know it to be difficult for beings here to see a Buddha, since they are poorly fated and in the grasp of the defilements. So we'll stop there today with this example. When you get to Vajrayana teachings, this example is in Mahayana teachings. When we get to Vajrayana teachings, then the presence of the Guru is, and this really happens, is like a wish-fulfilling gem. It doesn't mean visit a guru and immediately buy a lottery ticket and you're guaranteed to win it. It's not those desires, it's your heart's deepest desires. And the presence of a true master will rearrange the order of your karma so that auspicious circumstances will gather and give you the strength, the courage, the means to be able to work with yourself in a very productive way. Their physical presence, or through devotion, their mental presence in your existence changes many, many things. So this wish-fulfilling gem is a very relevant example when it comes to authentic gurus. So now let's dedicate what was ever good in this session, and sorry for rushing us through it. May whatever virtue was created by our session contribute to the state of omniscience being attained by the main enemy, mind's defilements, being completely defeated. Through that, may each and every sentient being become freed from the ocean of existence, troubled by its waves of rebirth, aging, sickness, and death. May this precious bodhicitta arise in those in whom it's not arisen. In those in whom it has arisen, may its development know no setbacks. May it increase ever more and more. Through this virtue, may we quickly achieve Mahamudra and establish every single sentient being in that same accomplishment. Thank you. So, your turn now, and if you have any comments or questions, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in the business of emanation, logically, and of course I may be totally wrong, but logically it seems to me that there are as if two kinds of bodhisattvas. One bodhisattva must be at the level of 9/10, is an emanation, and the second kind is those who are climbing the ladder or doing practice that brings them to this. Because how can it be that if it's an emanation of a Buddha, he emanates as the sixth level bodhisattva, which is much more limited and as if did not accomplish many things in the realization.
It's when we're looking through this chapter of Buddha activity, and in particular how Buddha mind interfaces with our mind, then what we should be understanding is that here we're not looking at emanations from 7th level, 8th level, whatever level bodhisattvas. We're looking at total Buddha mind in here, in this chapter. Only the enlightened activity of Buddha mind itself. So it can emanate as anything or anyone that could help us. And so it could emanate as any level bodhisattva if that one way or another is going to be helpful for us, to help us understand that you can't just jump to being totally enlightened. You need to work through stages, and that there is a 5th level and there is a 6th level. And then how do you get from 5th level to 6th level? In the general teachings, mainly that's through the practice of samadhi, through the practice of meditation. So we'd need to, in our life, just like we see animals, we see other beings in the 6 realms, if it was helpful to us to know that this is a such and such level bodhisattva and this one is higher, so that's why the lower one turns to the higher one for teaching and so on. If it's helpful, it can manifest like that. But Buddha mind can manifest in any way at all that's helpful for us, not just as beings, but through nature, through material objects, in all sorts of ways. That's the main point to get from here. On a different topic that we're not studying in this text, but we do in other texts, when we look at the bodhisattva levels, we see that, for instance, a 1st level bodhisattva can have up to 100 emanations at the same time. They are emanating, but not with all the qualities of a 100% perfect Buddha. It means they are a pure presence. It means that Buddha mind can shine through them in a limited way, and to help beings, to help 100 beings. But that's a different topic. We need to understand it in its own right. There's still somebody on their journey to enlightenment who's a this level bodhisattva, and because they are a bodhisattva on those levels, then basically they can shut down their personality and let some degree of light shine through them to their disciples as a blessing. It's like telescopes, whatever's in space is up there and the eye is here. But depending on how good your telescope, or if you've got one of these super, international telescopes, you can see more or less. The stars are there, the eye is here, but what's in between them determines the quality of what comes through. That's when we're looking at bodhisattvas, but not in this text. In this text, we're looking at the interface between totally pure mind and our relative existence.
So is the bodhisattva aware that they are an emanation? I mean, how?
That they are, it's not that they're, yeah, I wouldn't use the word emanation there. It's too solid. It's more, are they aware that they are channeling, I suppose is one of the words people would use these days. Pure Buddha mind, definitely. They're clear. To be even 1st level bodhisattva, you are non-stop, irreversibly in the presence of Dhammadhatu. And to know that you are channeling that is clear, totally clear. There's no doubt about it for them. But also they will be aware of their own limits. and they can only do what they can do on their level. And in language, language is mainly related to common reality. That's where it evolved. That's what we have to use to communicate. So between reincarnations of lamas and emanations of goodness knows what, especially in the Tibetan tradition, there's so much talk, and it's a bit confusing sometimes. It's not so helpful as it could be. And Tibetans, by their nature, they ramp everything up. They tend to, they're very good at superlatives, and when it comes to their gurus and so on, it's endless. He's an emanation of this Buddha, reincarnation of that one. They do that very easily. It's something to do with Tibetans. I mean, I know this because I know I'm only me. But when I went to Tibet, I was treated like a Rinpoche, and in particular, I've got a friend. Somehow she was elevated to a position of teaching a tradition. She was a disciple of Tarap Tulku in Denmark, and he invented a whole psychotherapy Buddhist system that was adopted. The Dalai Lama liked it very, very much. He translated the whole thing into Tibetan. Dalai Lama told his lamas, you should learn this, because this will help you understand psychology in the West, and the mental understanding they have there. And so when Tarap Tulku died, she had to carry on being the main person giving the teachings. And she was teaching near Dharamsala. It was the Tibetan government in exile, prime minister at the time, who set her up. And so she had these geshes and rinpoches coming to learn from her. She was on a throne, right? And so then the Tibetan people walking by, seeing her on a throne, teaching these rinpoches, like Tibetan people do, they come creeping in, bent over like this. All they wanted was her blessing. She said to me, Ken, what do I do? I can't give people blessings. I'm not a bodhisattva. I've just got this, blah, blah, blah to pass on. But she said, they come in looking so devoted. And I said, just give them the blessing, Don't let it go to your head, but they'll get a lot out of it. And then when I went to Tibet, I was presented as, like Marpa the translator, and you translated this. And you get people coming up, and monastics as well, thinking you're a somebody. Tibetans, how can you say, tend to do this. It's very respectful in one way, but bloody embarrassing if you don't deserve it. So then they do this with their lamas. If they're like, if they've got a connection with healing, and they say it's like an emanation of the medicine Buddha, and then so on and so on. And it can be inspiring, but in the end, to put it quite blankly, you have to be suspicious of everything you read, because and see who is this person really and truly, according to a reliable source. Somebody come up, or a Trangu Rinpoche and so on. If you can have a private word, is that person really all the blah, blah, blah that's in their CV? And they won't usually say something bad, but you can tell by their expression that, oh yeah, no, that's an authentic one. Otherwise they'll just, give you a nice smile.
Yeah, I have the experience of that. Yeah.
So the plan is, next week, we finish this text. It still might happen. And so we've not got that many verses. It's these examples, these 9 examples, they get simpler as they go along. And then we explore the whole group of 9. And then there's the end of the text, which is the conclusion, dedication. We should be able to do it, I think. And then the way Christmas and New Year work, I think Christmas and New Year, they're on Thursdays. So I'm non-stop. I'm just going to be carrying on. I'll be there on Saturdays. Day after, 2 days after Christmas, 2 days after New Year. And 2 days after Christmas, I start this course for a few weeks on dohas, just so we can not be on one text for weeks on end, give you a bit of a break. So that falls very nicely, because a lot of people need time over Christmas for family and all that sort of thing. So that's the plan. But I mean, if you can, next week, make it a big deal for yourself. If you've got a little shrine, light more candles, light more incense. Try and feel very, very grateful for this whole year that we've been on this text. And because when we make karma, we've been not struggling, but slogging on through this text, week after week after week after week. We've put a lot of time and effort and karma into it. So when you make a karma, how you finish it off, your state of mind, the way you dedicate it, will have big implications for the future. So if next week you can feel a lot of gratitude to the Buddhas and to Asanga and to Buddha Maitreya for this text, feel very fortunate that you've had the opportunity to have this sort of brief going through it and study, then it will make a big impact for future lives. You'll come back to this text, or if not to the text itself, to what it's telling you about, to recognition of Buddha nature. We need this kind of investment for future lives. It's what brought you here this time from your last lives. So next week, let's all try and make it a big deal and get the best out of all this karma that we've put into it. And in particular, so we end up with Maitreya Buddha when he's teaching, when he becomes Buddha and he's teaching. We want to be there. I do. I'm looking forward to that so much.
Ken, I won't be able to make the live session next week because I'm down at Glasgow Samye Dzong. They're opening next weekend.
Oh, it's the opening, yeah.
So looking that's a unique opportunity as well. So I'll have to catch up on this on the Sunday, hopefully. But thank you. Keep all that in mind. It's been very, very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then you need to buy all the candles in France.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible in some way also to dedicate maybe to this opening of this, the wonderful new song in Glasgow? Just if we're going to have this wonderful karma, send a bit over to them too.
Yeah, there's no limit.
Brilliant.
Can include that, but the main thing, quite honestly, is dedicated so you come back to these teachings life after life after life, because this text, not so much not the text, but what it teaches, is at the basis of all the Vajrayana traditions. And so whatever in future lives, whatever's there, whatever method, tantra, Mahamudra, Dzogchen, whatever's in a future life, we've got no idea. But if you've connected to the essence of them all through this text, then whatever is the relevant means happening in that world at that time through its teachers, you'll connect up with it. It's very different from having a connection to a specific practice. If we look at the invasion of Tibet, my life has been involved with the preservation of lineages. And so many lineages that were alive were lost because the monasteries were destroyed, the tulkus were destroyed, nobody even had the textual transmission of what we call lung. So they're gone forever. That practice no longer available. It's nowhere to be found. It's like my grandmother's memories. Whatever she remembered, I'm never going to know. It's gone forever. So if you're connected to a certain practice, yeah, it may come back in a future life. But if you're connected to the heart of all those practices, whatever means, skillful means are available at the time, you'll connect with those. It will be like your compass, guiding you to the right people, the right places, and helping you avoid the wrong ones.
Thanks, Ken. That's brilliant, wonderful explanation.
Yeah, it's very real. I mean, it's very relevant. When we see this life, it's precarious, isn't it? I mean, it's a kind of, it's not guaranteed. It's a fingers crossed reality. We need all the help we can get.
And Ken, that explanation makes it even more precious that you have given us this teaching, and I'm just so grateful. I just can't express it any other way. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very special teaching. I mean, and I was lucky. I studied this text twice in full, word by word, idea by idea, with Khenpo Sotim Gyatso, 2 times with Trungpa Rinpoche, and had opportunity to clear up anything that wasn't, still wasn't clear for me after that with the other Rinpoches who visited Samiling. So I didn't look for it, but I've got what very few people have had since, that opportunity to spend all that relaxed time. Lama, the thing was, there weren't Dharma centers. Samiling was the first, and then there were 1 or 2, and they started to appear. Lamas didn't have these incredible travel schedules of so many places to go to. They didn't have their own centers to go to. They hadn't established them yet. If they went to the west, it was, there was Samiling in Scotland, the biggest one. It took so many years for other centers to start to emerge in the USA and in Europe. So with Trungpa Rinpoche, he'd stayed 2 months, 3 months in Samiling, and we'd have the whole of those 3 months, like on this text, studying with him day after day. That kind of situation can't exist now. So many centers, lamas so busy, they get to go somewhere, they have to give a brief overview, a brief transmission of a text. They can't give 60 hours teaching, 100 hours teaching on something. So I'm very happy to share it with you. And I was just communicating with some other translators in India 2 days ago, and they were saying exactly the same. It's such an amazing text, such a precious text, and that what good fortune to be able to study it. It's also a text that disappeared. Asanga was 4th century. We don't have in India much record of it between the 4th and the 11th century being taught. It was a hidden text. And it was, according to the Tibetan version, it was only reintroduced into India when by Maitreya, Mapa's teacher, Maitreya, who taught it quite a bit. It did exist in China. There was a Chinese tradition of it, but it was a text that disappeared and then reappeared just before India stopped being Buddhist. It went to Tibet. It's amazing history.
Was when it disappeared, Ken, was it just because it because people, like other things, were being taught, it fell out? You know how things can fall out of fashion, so to speak. I mean, it's a very trite way of putting it, for such precious text. But I just wonder how it could disappear.
No, it was intentionally disappeared because Indian Buddhism wasn't ready for it. It's very funny looking at Buddhism developing in nations over centuries. The Buddha taught all 3 turnings of the wheel of Dharma in 45 years. And during his lifetime with his disciples, there were some who got the whole package. But then what you see in India is the basic Shravaka teachings took several centuries to become really widely established, with lots of monasteries and monks and nuns observing the discipline. Mahayana took some time to be formulated, and so you don't see that for several hundred years after the Buddha. It existed, but the texts and the formulations, and then the great Vajrayana masters, especially Nagarjuna, and then Asanga, that was hundreds and hundreds of years. So then Indian Buddhism was very enriched with Mahayana, but Vajrayana was secret. And the problem with these teachings is, whereas the Hinayana and the Mahayana teachings of Dharma very clearly, no self, no God, right? Forget it. All the other religions with God or gods and so on. Buddhism is no self and no divine self. If then all of a sudden you've got what's in this teaching, this is the real being, people would have got it confused. So Maitreya, through Asanga, gave us 5 wonderful, very complete texts. And I think 2 or 3 of them were propagated from then onwards. They deal with Dharma. But I think 2 of them, at least 2, were intentionally kept secret. It's not that they were disappeared, but they were disappeared publicly. And they were taught, or their meaning was taught in the Vajrayana that emerged from 5th century of our era onwards.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, so it was intentionally disappeared. But then what's curious, what's amazing with Maitreya is that just less than 100 years before, Buddhism disappeared from India completely because of the Muslim invasions, and also the rise of Hinduism. Disappeared completely. So in the century before that happened, these teachings were brought out, transmitted to the Tibetans, and then kept alive in Tibet. It's kind of beautifully timely. There's something going on there, that is very, very good. So then in our Karmakaju tradition, Mapa was Maitreya's disciple, so he got the essential understanding of this. And then Gampopa received another transmission through the line of Drongternpa and Putowa. So we've got several quite different lineages bringing these these teachings, to our particular lineage.
Incredible, so rich.
It's very, very rich. Okay, that's it. It's time to go. So see you next week for the grand finale, or whenever we meet up again. Be well. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Ken.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.